English translation, Ninth Contact, Friday, 21st March 1975, 1618 HRs.
Today, unfortunately, I have to have a somewhat one-sided conversation because I have important things to clarify. Already for decades, various human beings of Earth and entire groups have been pressing us partly consciously, partly unconsciously into spheres into which we do not fit in any form, spheres in which we do not want to be at home either. Often only for the sake of the desire to show off, and for the sake of pure profit are we ranked higher than we are in reality. But we are all only human beings like all human creatures. According to your terms, we may well live in a state of superior technology and of great spiritual and consciousness-based progress, but not in a boastfulness and overwhelmingness which the majority of the human beings on Earth impute to us. We are neither the guardians of the Earth humans nor any God-sent angels or the like. Various ego-addicted persons and groups led into the unreal by them claim that we were the guardians of the Earth and its human beings, and that we would direct their destinies. However, this does not correspond to the truth, because we are only carrying out a self-obligated task, which in no way has anything to do with a surveillance and a directing of the actual destinies of the Earth humans. It is therefore wrong to portray us as over-earthly ambassadors and guardians. If we were ambassadors and guardians in the sense as it is claimed about us, then we would land out in plain view and direct the destinies of the human beings of Earth in full recognizability. We are not what is imputed on us, even though we are spiritually and consciousness-based about 25 million years farther progressed and technically almost 312 millennia ahead of the Earth humans. But it is in the sense of all those Earth humans who are themselves caught in a religious belief to make us become something godly. In so doing, they degrade themselves and all their fellow human beings to underdeveloped human creatures. Through erroneous or very consciously invented contact reports, which are devoid of any truth, thus the impression arises that the human being of Earth would do nothing but make mistakes and in no way live in the right way. However, in truth this is not the case, because the human being of Earth follows his or her evolution-based path. Certainly he or she is barbaric, and accordingly also impetuous in his or her research, and often conscienceless. But barbarism is characteristic of many life forms, since it is resulting from nature and useful, whereby life in the first place is guaranteed. By this I am referring to the natural barbarism, which is free of perversions. This is also the case with much higher developed races than those of the Earth humans, and it settles no earlier than with higher consciousness-based relative absolute fulfillment when the necessary cognitions have become characteristic of the human being. However, it is in no way appropriate that the human being of Earth is only defamed and degraded to the perversion of evil. He or she is descendant of wild forebears and has to follow the path of his or her development. But this path leads through much hardship, misery, and toil to cognition and knowledge. However, this in turn requires the hardness of a certain barbarism, without which no urge and striving ahead for the new could be called upon. Not until there is a certain barbarity can research and development take place, because in it resides the necessary firmness to ignore certain binding things that would prevent the progress. Namely, for example, strict belief delusions that hinder the progress in every respect or even blight it. So, logically, human creatures are only able to carry out fruitful research if they to a large extent turn off religious belief delusions and search for the truths where these are really hidden. This does not affect the esteem for the life, or even the esteem for the creation itself. Quite the contrary. The esteem for the creation and for the life is all the more fueled by the conscious and responsibility-bearing research and its cognitions. The Earth human may recognize that this is really so, by the fact that no life could be freed from illness, If in the early beginnings, low animal life would not be previously destroyed experimentally, because this is necessary to analyze and produce the germs and antidotes. But destroying life for research purposes requires a barbarism. But also all kinds of evolution require the barbarism, because only this produces the necessary firmness. Thus, a human being who is under strong belief delusions of any kind is never able to bring about a determining life-building development, because he or she thinks and acts too one-sidedly and too humanely, wherethrough he or she, however, likewise perverts one-sidedly. The great danger lies in the fact that scientists of the chemistry, medicine, and physics, etc., often take advantage of the might of their skills and knowledge for self-benefiting purposes and beat their less developed conspecifics into enslavement and exploitation. This is to be prevented, however, equally their achievements in technical regard, if these serve only the destruction. It is not acceptable that they thereby raise themselves to gods, and that they thereby commit the same mistakes as already our forebears did. We want to try to prevent this through certain influences. But we also want to show certain ways and let certain cognitions mature in the earth human. And when we secretly interfere in certain things and concerns based on impulses, then it is only for the reason to prevent the earth human from making the same mistakes as they did occur harmfully to our ancestors.
You have talked about this once before. Do you want to continue telling me the history of humankind today?
Sure, I want that.
Then may I first still ask you a single question that is of concern to various of my friends and acquaintances?
Sure.
This is about your beamship, or rather about your beamships, which I have been able to photograph at various occasions. It is incomprehensible to my friends and acquaintances that only I of all people saw them and was also able to photograph them.
That question is very easy to answer. The gift of observation of the human beings of Earth is very bad and superficial. They very often regard our beamships as some kind of earthly airplanes, etc., wherethrough they hardly pay attention to them more than a short fraction of a second. They are quite simply not used to a very precise observing and considering. But on the other hand, it is the case that we mostly protect our beamships against any sight, so that the human beings are unable to observe us. It is a breeze for us to, just according to our wishes, protect our ships within a radius of 500 millilars completely or partially, laterally, from above or below by means of a distortion screen against sight. Therefore, when I allowed you to photograph my ship from one side, it was shielded from further view on all other sides by the distortion screens so that no uninitiated persons were able to see it. I want to prove this to you and your friends. Hence, in this respect, I give you again the permission to take 3 more photos of my beamship, for which you have to bring your friends along. Arrange for a new film which you will put in the camera under their supervision. After that, come with them to the contact location, which I will still agree upon with you. Then you shall position yourself standing somewhat away from them. When I then appear with my beamship, you will take the 3 pictures. As usual, however, the distortion screens on the ship will be activated in such a way that only you in particular will be able to see it. So tell your friends that they should not be disappointed when they will not be able to see my ship as well. This is only intended to prove to them that my statements in relation to the distortion screens correspond to the truth. But this will be the only proof I will ever grant to your friends. Further ones will never follow. This must be enough for them.
Thanks, Simyase. That is very accommodating of you. May I also perhaps on a fitting occasion make a tape recording of you, that is, of your voice?
I said that the 3 photos will be the first and last proof from my side. I cannot allow more, understand that. If the human beings already do not trust your words and your photo proofs and even badmouth the latter as montages, etc., then the same would be to be expected if you were to record my voice on the tape. One would accuse you of deception and claim that the voice belongs to some earth woman. Such a proof would be senseless, hence I also cannot approve it. But in the future, I no longer want to have to get involved in such explanations, as I have discussed similar things several times already. Explain this to your friends. If, in the future, they want to dedicate their interest to your information and accept the truth, then they shall do so in trust in us and in you. Otherwise they shall no longer dedicate themselves to this cause, because doubt, criticism, and mistrust are not conducive to our tasks.
That is harsh, Simyase.
It had to be said because only the truth alone is beneficial.
However, some of my friends insist on the argument that they would have to continue my tasks if something would happen to me through the intrigues of my fellow human beings and the authorities, which was already almost the case once.
These are arguments that are none, because they will have in their hands all the information and all the material that you supply to them. If they have trust in you and in us, then this is perfectly sufficient for them. They do not need anything more. Their arguments put forward, however, do not alone correspond to this worry about the intrigues, because selfish things and thoughts are also anchored in them, and a great distrust towards your information and pictures. This is in part just another attempt at a way to achieve their own goal of line of proof, whereby the drive to participate in a decisive top position also comes into play. But this subject shall now really be finished permanently, because it is senseless to keep talking about it.
Okay, I will not talk about it anymore, and will not bother you anymore with it.
You did not bother me with that because you did not want these explanations for yourself. But now, I would like to talk about other things.
Would you mind allowing me one more important question beforehand?
Sure.
One has thrown at my head that it would be very strange that you had come to speak about the Talmud Emmanuel, and that your reports and information would agree with the Talmud. It was said that both were probably from the same source, and therefore some things could not be right.
One has really done that?
Yes.
Do not worry about this, because it is in the nature of those with low intelligence and those having no knowledge to always exercise criticism and complain about everything in their distrust and unintellect. That is why they often look for connections that they cannot understand, because they are unable to think unendingly. Their spiritual and consciousness-based knowledge and thinking are subject to sharp limitations, which they have great difficulty crossing. Hence, it is also incomprehensible to them that the truth, the knowledge, and the essence of wisdom are throughout all times never subject to a wavering, and therefore always sound the same. So when Emmanuel 2,000 years ago brought the teaching of the knowledge and of the essence of wisdom, he could only do so in the same literal sense as it had also already been done tens of thousands of years prior to him. And when I speak at the present time about the teaching of the knowledge and the essence of wisdom, then in turn I am only able to do this in the same literal sense as Emmanuel, and all the teachers before him had already taught this. So if my words sound equally directed with those of Emmanuel, then the logical recognition is to be drawn that nothing has been changed of the teaching. The truth always remains the same for all times. Hence it always sounds identical even throughout millions of years, despite being told in other words. The sense remains the same. I am very sorry if this is not understood by your friends, and if they therefore express criticism. However, it must be recommended to them that they train their intellect and practice in the logic, because only by doing so are they able to master and use their consciousness and its powers. Through criticism, they inhibit the further consciousness-based development, as long as this criticism is illogical. It will not be easy to make this clear to them because, as I have already explained to you once before, they are still very far behind you in the spiritual and consciousness-based evolution and are not able to follow the teaching. They are still too caught up in their religions for them to be able to recognize and accept the truth. They still live under the irrational assumption that truth, knowledge, and belief would be religion, and that one could also call it religion. They believe that some distinct or undefined form of religion would be good and bring help to the life forms. They do not understand that a religion enslaves a creature and makes it dependent on something that stands above it, giving commands or instructions. A religion always necessitates this, wherethrough the respective life form is no longer master of itself, but submits and enslaves itself to something that is supposed to stand mightily above it. Hence, there is not a single form of religion in the entire universe that is good, and that is not simply an irrational and strange ideology. The fact that I brought up the Talmud Emmanuel is only logical. Even considering that your friends are partly still very much strangers to the spiritual knowledge and consciousness knowledge and their use, I do not understand why this question could be posed. The answer to it is indeed so logical that it can with certainty be answered by an older child. The Talmud Emmanuel represents the only writing that was actually written during Emmanuel's lifetime, and that is the only one that contains the teaching of the truth, the knowledge, the essence of wisdom, and the spirit unfalsified. Other writings of the same kind do not exist, so this one had to be considered. Sure, we could have written this teaching anew and given it to you for spreading, but this was not in our sense because only the existence of the Talmud can prove the untruth of the New Testament of your Bible to many human beings. As I see things with this question, it all boils down to an evil mistrust therein and an inappropriate criticism of everything and everyone. Whoever has directed this question to you is consciousness-based, very impaired by religions and lives in their associated distortions. This means that many different explanations and interpretations of a religion are anchored in this human being and create a dignityless confusion in him or her, which he or she is unable to unravel and neutralize him or herself. As a result, this human being is torn back and forth between the unreal and the real when it comes to things of the religion or the real truth.
You use harsh words, Simyase.
The truth always sounds harsh. But please spare me now from now on with questions if they do not originate from yourself. I have already pointed this out to you once before. As of today, I will not answer any more questions if they are not fundamentally from you. I have no necessity to constantly answer questions which have already no longer been a secret to you for a long time. Moreover, it is not my task to foster the formation of knowledge of the Earth humans or simply of your friends in the way that I submit to answering their illogical questions. What I have to explain is within my and our discretion, but not that of your friends or fellow human beings. If that were not the case, and if this were possible despite the swinging wave barrier preventing it, then we would be able to make ourselves recognized by the public at large, something in which we, however, really have no interest. Explain to your friends that they must come to terms with the fact that after all it was you who was for very particular reasons chosen to remain in contact with us. This time I am saying this once and for all, and I will not accept further discussions about it anymore.
I did not want to upset you.
You also have not done that, but it is irrational of your friends not to use their intellect. Their unjustified distrust and their criticism are nothing but harmful to our cause. Explain to them that if they want to be connected with our cause, they must extend their trust to us and you, and learn to use their intellect logically. But if they are not willing to do so, then it is of no value to continue to let them in on the things yet to come. The whole undertaking requires trust in us and in you without any requirements. But now, I have talked enough about these things, and that finally. At our fifth contact, I finished the history of humankind at the time when 50,000 years ago, according to earthly calendar, our homeworlds found freedom and peace. Before that time, 70,000 human beings fled under the leadership of the scientist Pelagon. With spaceships, which they had seized, they fled through the space out of another configuration of space and time into the one of the Milky Way of the Dern universe and settled on the Earth. Under Pelagon's leadership, there were 200 sub-leaders, scientists who were each responsible for a specific field of knowledge. Pelagon was unanimously recognized and respected by them and all others as King of Essence of Wisdom, Ishwish, God. In the course of the millennia, they built large cities and inhabited all continents of the earth. Unfortunately, this only went well for barely 10,000 years before lust for might regained the upper hand and a deadly war raged over the world. Everything without residue was destroyed, and only a few thousand human beings were able to survive, while others fled again into the outer space and into the old space-time configuration and settled on distant worlds. For the next 7,000 years the Earth was no longer flown to, during which time those who stayed behind became completely wild and degenerated. After that, the descendants of those who had settled on distant worlds returned. Again, they were led by an Ish-Wish. Under such a kind of Ish-Wish command, the distant descendants later built Atlantis and Mu, two huge cities on two different continents. For thousands of years, they lived in complete friendship and in peace, until some scientists again succumbed to the greed for might and wanted to seize the rule. However, having become tired of the constant wars, the peoples rose against them, hence they seized spacecrafts and fled into the outer space, according to earthly calendar about 15,000 years ago. For 2 millennia they and their descendants lived in a neighboring solar system. 2 millennia during which they had become very evil and were only able to uphold a certain regulation under the strictest discipline. Through mutations and researches, they achieved a very long lifespan, which amounted to more than 3,000 years. Obsessed with imperiousness, they left their world about 13,500 Earth years ago and came back to the Earth. Their supreme leader was the scientist Aras, who was also called the Barbarian. As already Ishwish Pelagon nearly 190,000 years ago, he also had 200 leaders or sub-leaders who were each responsible for a specific field of knowledge. They settled in 2 parts in the far north and in today's America, Florida, whereby they constantly forged ahead to Atlantis and Mu in order to invade them with war. And only a few millennia after their renewed requisitioning of the Earth, they succeeded in completely destroying Mu and Atlantis. Few survivors went into servitude, while great scientists were able to flee and returned to the original homeworlds in the Pleiades. But thousands of years before that point in time, the new intruders spread across the earth, and Ishwish Aras ruled with a firm and bloody hand. But also his sub-leaders usurped all kinds of things and made themselves more and more independent. Within only 3 decades, they acted largely at their own discretion. Even though they feared the punishments of the Ishwish Aras, they pushed very far away from them the codex of preserving their own race pure under all circumstances and not allowing it to fall prey to mutations. Forbidden and secretly, they went out and captured Earth-created life forms, but so also turned wild or mutated beings, which were very distant descendants of former human beings from the outer space. The female creatures, beautiful in their wildness, were tamed and copulated with or fertilized with genetical manipulation by the leaders who called themselves celestial sons. Case by case, depending on their own races, they thus created mutated creatures, completely new life forms that were of dwarfish stature, very gigantic or similar to animal forms. Semjasa, the supreme leader of all sub-leaders, copulated with an EVA, a female creature who, according to his understanding, was still preserved as the most human-like and also quite beautiful one. The descendant of this act was of male gender and a human being in good form. Semjasa called him Adam, which is tantamount to human being of earth. Another copulation of the same kind brought forth a female creature, and in later years Semjasa determined that these two Adams had to mate together. In the meantime, however, many other creatures of the same kind were conceived, who banded together into large groups and tribes. From them today's humankind developed, which was already at its beginning according to its races distributed to the most different continents. Ishwish, Eris, was very infuriated by this action, and where he could get hold of the fallible ones, he ordered his incorrectly acting sub-leaders to be captured and killed or banished. In the course of time, however, he changed his mentality, and he recognized a new might that he could exercise over the newly created human beings of Earth. Through newly appointed guardian angels and sub-leaders, he cast a spell over 3 humankinds. These were the forebears of those whom you now call Indians, then the inhabitants who had settled around the Black Sea, and thirdly those who roamed in the south below the Mediterranean Sea as gypsies, and were therefore called Hebrions. Through his guardian angels Ishwish-Arus, let these humankinds be subjugated and a spell be cast on them. As supreme ruler over them, he let himself be worshipped and prayed to by them. In his megalomania, he let himself in relation to them be celebrated as creator and creation, and his sub-leaders as creational helpers. He enacted harsh and strict laws which without exception demanded the blood of a culprit. His son, Jehav, who took over his reign after 3,400 years, was only very little better, for he too, as proclaimed Ishwish, demanded nothing but blood and death among the 3 enslaved humankinds. It was only the later descendants of the gods who became more humane and developed in the sense of the spiritual evolution. When this was finally the case, they decided, in accordance with their change of mentality and consciousness, to leave the development of the Earth humans to their natural courses and to withdraw themselves to their original home. So the last of them left the Earth 943 years ago and returned as peaceful creatures to our Pleiades, where their own humankind had in the meantime become very highly developed. Today they live united as particularly long-lived with the normally aging, who on average reach 1,000 years of age, and so today we are one single people in peace and freedom. That is the essential which is important for the Earth human to know. Further necessary knowledge is to be mentioned regarding a cosmic developmental change, which I have already mentioned once before. It concerns the age of Aquarius, also known as the Golden Age. Concerning this, the first thing I have to explain is that the religious interpretations regarding this age are absolutely unreal and are consciously misinterpreted. In part, however, there is also a certain irresponsible fanaticism behind it when it is claimed that the Aquarian Age was the religiously proclaimed last days. But the New Age is by no means an end time, because in truth it brings the real life. It is only this age that makes it possible to bring everything to a high estate and to develop the spirit as well as the consciousness according to providence. However, it will take many centuries after the onset of the age before it will be so. First and foremost, as usual, the scientists who are poor in religion will reap benefits and might from the new advent, while the normal people will be impaired and profoundly disadvantaged by the religion. Due to the change of ages, many of the people who hold fast to the belief in a religion fall prey to a sectarian and religious delusion. In particular, the 185 years of the transition period are mightfully characterized by the fact that religious belief directions of all kinds sprout from the ground like mushrooms and cast their dangerously destructive spell over the human beings. Murder, suicide, mass murder and exploitation of all kinds, as well as evil sectarian religious enslavement arising from unreal assumptions of belief, belong to the order of the day, wherethrough the entire worldview is being shaken in a religious sectarian manner. Supposed bringers of salvation and false prophets take up a lot of room in open public and fanatically search for victims and new hangers-on. This is the prelude to the Golden Age, the transitional phase of 185 years. However, the full value of the age will not dawn until the 3rd of February 2029 at 11:20 CET. The power of developmental change of the New Age has begun on the 3rd of February 1844, and since then the tremendous changes on the earth have been rushing forward unstoppably. The New Age is already taking its toll. Religious insanity, rapid development of the computer technology, other technology, of the space travel technology, genetic engineering and all sciences, prevalence of crime, extermination, wars, etc., signs of the time which are unoverlookable. The first half, representing the halfway value of the Aquarian Age, lasted 93 years. From 1844 to 1937, during which the Earth escaped to the outermost radiations of the Age of Pisces. As of the 3rd of February 1937, 11:20 CET, the actual Age of Aquarius began in the transition period, in other words, the second transitional half. From this date on, rapid developmental change events, discoveries, inventions, and wars, as well as rebellion, etc., are absolutely everyday norms of time and development, which are characteristic of no other age in this form. However, at the same time, the beginning of the Age of Aquarius guarantees the beginning of a truly spiritual and consciousness-based life. The entire earthly solar system, with all its innumerable life forms, is cast under the spell of the New Age. Everything and everyone is and will be influenced by it, as this is a cosmic law. According to this law, to which all movements of all planets and all life forms in the entire universe are subject, the Earth too entered in the year 1844, in the course of the cosmic event, into a period which evolution-based renews or eliminates all hitherto existing and valid regulations, if these are not of creational nature-based character. The new era entails that all created regulations of Earth-human origin, which had their validity until then, are newly established, changed and evolutionized, modified or abolished. The origin of this epochal transformation lies in the radiation range of the gigantic center of the stars, which we call the central sun, around which the earthly, that is to say, the SOL system orbits and passes once in the course of 25,860 years through 12 different ages in the sense of the zodiac signs known to you. The Earth, that is to say the SOL system, orbits the Milky Way and its central sun in about 318 million years, and is already immersed in the outer edge of the golden radiation of the galactic central sun, which emits the strongest transforming and developmental change radiations in the entire Milky Way area. Also regarding this radiation, the Age of Aquarius is called the Golden Age, the revolutionary, the new, the greatest, the miracle age, which brings the most immense evolutions. But much calamity is also associated with it, especially in terms of the religions and the use of new discoveries and new achievements. Not until many centuries have gone by will the human being of Earth triumph over his or her unintellect and his or her irrationality and establish everything based on the creational natural laws. The age of Aquarius is a great and exciting time. Very sublime and golden, it also has an effect in later ages and influences all zodiac circles that are to be passed through later. But during the course of the Golden Age, the human being will find a natural spiritual consciousness-based direction, which, however, will not come about without great confusions. Countless human beings will die in the delusion of their sects and religions and come to an evil end. But happy will be those who have escaped the irrational teachings of the religions and sects and indulge in the truth, the knowledge, and in the essence of wisdom of the Spirit. A tremendous renewal will take place on the earth. That which is intellectual will no longer be the only decisive factor, but will be run rings around by spiritual knowledge and spiritual ability. Anything that is not highly enough developed in spiritual consciousness-based terms, for being receptive to and for in harmony with the higher spheres of the spiritual go hand in hand with it, will be erased and eliminated because it disturbingly and dangerously impairs the life in every way. All spirit-inhibiting, spirit-enslaving, consciousness-inhibiting, and consciousness-enslaving things will be destroyed after everything has passed the climaxes. First and foremost in this regard will be the religions and sects, which function as the most malicious enslavers of the consciousness and its development. The New Age brings with it that the earth is cleansed of all purely negative and purely positive might, where through a healthy neutral equalizedness can be created. The pioneers of these developmental changes are the cosmic, the creational natural, and all conditioning laws. However, also human beings who, as prophets and teachers, announce the truth of the knowledge and the spiritual and consciousness-based essence of wisdom, are pioneers of these developmental changes. But they will suffer from abuses and insults. They will be accused of lying and cheating and charlatanism when they announce the truth and reveal that religions and sects always only lead to the abyss, but never to the development of consciousness and spirit. These pioneers will be revolutionaries, heretics, and outcasts because they will fight against the irrational might of the religions and sects and announce the truth that is millions of years old. There will be many among them born in the double sign of the time, in the twin sign of Aquarius. As earthly Aquarius-borns, they are also cosmic Aquarius-borns, ones creating developmental change, renewers, revolutionaries and prophets, teachers and often masters of the new time. But the actually great ones among them are those who were born in the first year of the second cosmic halftime of transition to the Aquarian era, and in fact on the first day of the change, on the 3rd of February 1937, according to the earthly calculation of time. The time of the hours and minutes is also very determining, because the closer it is to the transition point of 1120 HRs, the more intense the age of Aquarius characteristics are formed. But there are only very few of them, and they are widely scattered throughout the world. But if they are not strongly influenced from childhood onwards by religions and sects, as well as by their environment, etc., then they are the actual pioneers and the geniuses of the new time. These instructions and revelations given here, which are very of interest and also of great importance for the human beings, you are to spread by all means. That is the wish of all of us. I know that you have already done some things to spread my messages and everything else, but unfortunately that is not enough. It would be good if you yourself would form a group that deals with these things intensively. We have unfortunately realized over the last 2 weeks that your efforts have not been as fruitful as we expected. However, this is not your fault, but ours, because we let ourselves be deceived about the honesty and love of truth of certain people whose addresses I told you. Unfortunately, they are more chained to their religions and sectarianism than we had calculated. But we did not want to penetrate into their deepest secrets, where through their religious and sectarian partiality escaped us. Hence it has become necessary for you to open up new wellsprings and ways to be able to spread the truth.
It is easy for you to say, but what should I do? I am an unknown in this field in the public eye and have no connections. I really do not know how I might reach the general public.
Believe me that all those who are searching for the truth and who also recognize the value of your transmissions will not be blind and deaf. Therefore, do not worry that you are still an unknown in this matter, since you will still in this year, as well as in the following years, become known worldwide. Make an effort to find good friends who want to be of help to this cause, because such friends are already waiting for you. Reach your magazines and newspapers, your television studios and your radio stations with their help. Organize gatherings and lectures with their help and shout out your knowledge on public streets and squares. Do everything possible and enlighten the human beings.
You are asking a lot, Simyase, and I do not know if I will be able to achieve that. You obviously do not take into consideration that I might with certainty some other time end up in the insane asylum, because I am mightless in the face of intrigues of the authorities, etc. Surely some persons would prick up their ears if I make an effort for the matter in this way, but would it really benefit from that? Unfortunately, I live here on the earth, which is ruled and inhabited by human beings who often fear the truth and also know how to suppress it with all mean means. I am certainly not afraid of it, and also not of the fact that I will be ridiculed, mocked, and accused of lying. Instead, however, I fear that newspapers, television, radio, and authorities, etc., would publicize completely distorted and mendacious allegations and presentations of my information, which would probably only be very detrimental to our cause. If I am officially proclaimed to be a lunatic, then I have achieved nothing at all that would serve the cause.
I understand your arguments completely. But consider an old saying that is often used among you: no soup is eaten as hot as it is cooked. Of course, your friends and you will be ridiculed and mocked, and should it happen to one or another that they are prevented from their doing by intrigues of the authorities, then the other friends are still there who can continue all the tasks. But you are encouraged to cause a worldwide controversy in relation to our cause and our appearance on the earth, in spite of upcoming calumnies against you, which will even come out of Mrs. Meier's mouth.
However, that requires that these friends are also really friends. If they are only friends by name, then they are valueless, because such friendships only tend to last forever if profit can be made from them. Real friends who are still friends even in times of need can rarely be found. But besides this also the problem of the financials arises, because to serve the cause in the way you have described it requires a lot of money.
Do not worry about good friends, because I have already told you that they are waiting for you. They will even be such good friends to you that they too will endure all unjustified mockery and ridicule, and will even amuse themselves over it. Mockery, criticism, and ridicule and so forth represent only a barrier that persons, who are based on their consciousness, poor and unknowing, build up to hide their own low intelligence because their knowledge is not sufficient to comprehend the truth. Truth and knowledge have a scary effect on them and induce anxiety. With your friends, you will never be alone, wherever you may be. But I too will always be with you via thoughts, so that you can also talk to me when you ask for it. However, I will think about your problem and also discuss it with the others, so that I will then be able to tell you some behavior patterns according to which you can simply direct yourself. At the given time I will report to you about it. For the time being, however, it is up to you to strive for the cause and to take care of forming a purposive group with friends, which may serve our cause. You also do not have to be worried about the financial aspect and about a center to be created, from where everything shall ultimately be directed and come from, because also in this area you will find appropriate help. Do not worry, Everything will take its course as has been calculated and predetermined. But I will myself also strive to help you financially because there is the possibility of—
Those things are unfortunately forbidden for us, Simya-se. According to our laws, which are however incomprehensible to me, these things are not allowed. They are stained as deception, swindle, and charlatanry, etc.
I did not know that, and it is incomprehensible to me that this can be forbidden. But if that is really the case, then I have another possibility. It is known to me that the human beings of Earth like to wear jewelry. You might sell such things to your fellow human beings. I am happy to obtain crystals, etc. from other planets for you, which you can then sell at a reasonable price to jewelry aficionados, who can have them crafted into pieces of jewelry.
That is not feasible either, because that too would bring me into conflict with the mills of law. I would be accused of deception if I would sell things to people and explain that they came from other planets. I would have to be able to prove this. Otherwise I would be severely punished. But on the other hand, it would certainly also be the case that the authorities would confiscate such things from me, so that their composition and structure, etc. could be analyzed. And I would with certainty never get them back. I know too well the machinations of the authorities, but also the often quite primitive laws.
That really cannot be so, can it?
Yes, unfortunately.
I do not understand that, because that is illogical. We have hitherto never been concerned with your laws, but if it is really as you say, then we will not be able to avoid doing so intensively in the future. Such legislations are nevertheless simply impossible and life-form enslaving.
Unfortunately, that is the way it is, and I would not know how to get around these laws.
I am confident that we will solve your problem. But if you want, I will at any time bring you crystals and other things, if you nevertheless want some. And do not then fear the authorities if they want to confiscate some of it. Since even if they were to analyze around with it for centuries, they would not be able to make any other observations than with the same things that you also have on the Earth. The atomic buildup, structures, etc. are of equal value for every single thing in the entire universe. Gold remains gold, and it has the same properties all over the universe. Whether it comes from the Pleiades or from the Earth, there is no difference that can be observed. Thus also crystals remain ordinary crystals, without analyzable differences, whether they are from the Earth or from any other planet whatsoever. The nature works according to a universally valid law, which guarantees an equal creation of all things. This lies in the logic of the creation, wherethrough all development of material is guaranteed.
That is assuaging, and I will consider it. Maybe I will find a way myself.
I also absolutely think you are capable of that, but nevertheless I too will make an effort for the matter. So let us leave it at that for today.